Hello guys, and welcome to this our first season preview, or at least the first that it's actually a YouTube video. And I got inspired to do this by doing some of the other videos, and also by good feedback I'm getting from you to the videos I do. So hopefully you like this too. And a disclaimer right from the start, probably this is going to be a longer one, so I'm going to put notes in the comments below, so you can jump ahead to your division if you don't have time to watch all of it. So first, some general words about how this is going to look. So we are going to take a look at each team in such capsule. For example, here we take a look at the fantasy team of the Beerville McLovins, and you see here the team status. It's a legendary team, and you see the main guys on the team at forward, at defense, and in goal. And also we have a 5-star rating for each team. And as you see, the legendary McLovins, they have 5 stars all around. And in blue here, in blue are noted the players that have been picked up at this year's auction. And as you see here, Beerville, they signed Yager at the auction with the obvious intention of getting younger. So this will be the format we'll be using for all teams, and we will look at, through all the 20 teams of the UDL in this format. And also a couple notes about the offensive, defensive, and goaltending stars. This is not about forwards, defense, and goaltenders. Well, of course, the goaltending and goaltenders, they overlap, but the offensive is referring to the offensive categories from the scoring system, which are the 6 listed above. And the defensive refers to the 4 other skater categories, which are the penalty minutes, hits box, and face-off percentage. So, and your forwards will contribute to the defensive star rating, and your defenseman will contribute to your offensive star rating. So, because they they all contribute to all the categories. And the goaltending naturally are all the 4 goaltending categories that we have. And a general note for the whole way I did this is basically I took a couple of season projections for player by player and combined them, and I included some of my own projections. So basically I built a bottom-up approach, and then after the auction we saw which player is on which UDL team. So this is a sum of the players' projected totals, and of course this is scored in a roto style system because I have not simulated head-to-head matchups and so on. This is really on a whole other level, which I never actually thought of doing. And without further ado, let's go to the first division, which is the Patrick division. A division which is wide open now that the perennial contender and 6-time reigning division champion has kind of stepped down and is bracing for a rebuild. The Ramparts, of course, with a new owner in charge. And the teams we will view them in the order I predict them to finish. So the first team is the one that I project to finish first, and these are the Lumberjacks. The Lumberjacks are a top-heavy team, like Brad noticed in his preview, and they have a really 6-star core in Ovechkin, Bergeron, and Burns. And also Bishop is quite great. And as you see, their ratings, they actually don't have a 5-star offense because the depth behind these top guys is not that great, and they actually are doing better in the more gritty categories. And the goaltending with Ryan Miller acquired at the auction, and he's the only cover at the moment for Bishop. This is quite a risky move, and that's why the goaltending gets only a 3-star rating, because with only Bishop and his known injury issues, it's a big bet from Kevin. And what is not seen here in his core, guys, are some rookies that could potentially have quite big impact in this season, like Gusev and a whole Anaheim rookie line in Max Comtois, Sam Steele, and Troy Terry. So the Lumberjacks have a lot to look forward to, not only from the veterans but also from their rookie crop. So I predict them to finish atop of the Patrick and to be a title contender. In second place, I predict the Montreal Wanderers. The Tim and Nick have managed to collect quite an impressive offensive team, and you see here the depth at center is just unbelievable. They have Seguin, Matthews, Monahan, and I had to move Barzal to one side just to fit within the field I had laid myself. And on wing they aren't half bad either, so they are one of the few teams that have a 5-star offensive rating, but they're quite soft. And they're on D, you see they picked up Pelek, who actually slots as a number 4 defenseman for them, which is quite weak, I would say, for a number 4. They could use some depth on D, and also they are in a very similar situation to Hearst in terms that they have one stud goaltender, and behind him not so much. They have some cover here with Montembeault in case Bobrovsky falls down with injury or something. So this is quite good, but in terms of the second goalie on the active roster, Nilsson is quite, I don't know, terrible for a lack of a better idea. So maybe they will have to consider improving their goalie depth and to rise their status to a contender. And you see here their status is a playoff team. If I have a team listed as a playoff team, I consider it quite near a walk to make the playoffs, and also in the same time as a dark horse for a playoff run, for a deep playoff run. And in terms of rookies, they have Colin White and Taro Hirose coming up, which could have bigger impact as early as this season. And next in third place in the Patrick, I have the Brooklyn Aces, and here also Mike has collected quite impressive offensive team, and you see he has a pretty good rating for offense, and his team is quite deep, and it's quite balanced, so he's not susceptible to a single guy's injury. But the problem is that this team is one of the softest, if not the softest team in the league in terms of the defensive categories. So they're one of the worst teams in terms of block shots. So basically they will lose this category in any given night or week, and are really far away from being competitive in this regard. So what they can hope for is to have a great season from Tuukka Rask and a respectable one from from Lundqvist, so they can go get more from their goaltending and combine this with their deep offense to actually have a successful season. I have them as a bubble team, which is quite around the playoff line, but I actually have them above the playoff line. So I have them as a bubble team who makes the playoffs from the Patrick division. And below the playoff line in the Patrick, I have the Kamloops Blazers, who I have labeled them a rebuilder, although it is quite some time since the Blazers have been really competitive, and they still have a ways to go. They have some pieces up front like Braden Point and Patrick Laine, and their defense is also young and quite solid. But what about this goalie situation? They picked up Riddick in this auction, this year's auction, and behind him there are 3 guys with contracts that are buyout needing, and 2 guys on the farm which might actually be 2 of his best 3 guys. So there is definitely a goalie riddle to be solved here, and I'm sure Greg will be onto it in the next couple of days before cut down day. And in the last place in the Patrick division, we have the ultimate wild card of this year's league. I've labeled the Ramparts also as a rebuilder, but with so many change, you see all the blue pieces that have been picked up at the auction. It is a really difficult team to gauge. I actually can see the Ramparts finishing, better position than this, and actually be on the verge of fighting for playoffs. But I don't think a team that is so offensively starved can be really competitive. Also, the goaltending situation is quite murky, but they have the quantity, and hope that Vince surely hopes that he can extract some quality out of the quantity he got at the auction. They are actually pretty good in terms of the defensive category, so they will be a tough team to play against. And this pretty much does it for the Patrick. So the next division is the Adams. We take a look at the Adams, which this year continues to be, I don't know, this has to be the most competitive division, at least the most amount of teams that are really, really strong. And we start with my pick for first place, and these are the Scouts. I think Andrew has done a great job. He's again one of the few teams with a 5-star offensive rating, and maybe the deepest team in the league in terms of forward skaters. So he has great depth at forward and at D. You see, I usually did the top 6 forwards and the top 4 defensemen, but he had many guys who deserve to be mentioned, so I put them all here. And he has also more to cover. So really, the Giordano and Edward pickups boost his defensive numbers as well. And the only Achilles heel I can see is his goaltending. And Andrew must surely be hoping that Dave Tippett will have some noticeable effect on the Edmonton defense, as he owns the current Edmonton tandem in goal. And his team will be heavily dependent on how the Oilers do in the NHL. But still, even if he rides mostly his skaters, he should have no trouble being near the top of the league, and I have labeled him as a contender for the title. Sorry. In second place, I have the reigning champion, the Upper Canada Patriots. They have quite a big part of their championship core intact, but have added some interesting pieces like Tom Wilson, who they paid a hefty price to get. But it is a piece that they really needed, and it really boosted their greedy categories, as he's one of the few players who provides that much of scoring and penalty minutes and hits in one player. They really wrote the Binnington Allen tandem last year, and this brought them a lot of success, especially Binnington, and they will be banking on them again. But with Bernier as only cover, I don't see this as one of the best goalie crews in the league, mainly because most of the sources I used, they predict some kind of a regression in Binnington's numbers, so there are not many believers that he can maintain the percentages he had in the second half of last year. In third place, I have the Jackalopes and Max. This is a team that's pretty balanced and good, but it can be brought to greatness by their goaltenders. If they go on the run, especially late in the season and in the playoffs, this has to be on the back of some great goaltending. This is the first team of the ones that we have seen so far that gets the 5-star goaltending rating. And the impressive part is that, as often does with Max, is that this goaltender crew is a homegrown one for the J-Lopes. And you see that he boosted his forward ranks with Nino Niederreiter, and he needed to add some offensive punch, so he also paid a hefty price. But they have interesting potential rookies and a wild card in Galchenyuk, who could actually explode this year if he plays alongside Malkin for the full year. And he has two promising rookies coming up on the defensive side in Showalski and Ty Smith. So something to look forward to for Odessa. And I have the playoff line here, which means, to surprise of many maybe, that I have the Tigers below the playoff line. And yes, they pack a offensive punch in their top guys that cannot be rivaled by any team in Stamkos, Kucherov, and Kane and Hedman. But below this top four, it's quite a drop. So they have Hurtel and Keller, but the goaltending, come on, I'm not sold at all. And this is one of the teams with the weakest goaltending crew. Anderson, he will get some starts, but the ratios will likely be atrocious. And Cam must be hoping for an injury to either Tuukka Rask or Matt Murray to boost his goaltending numbers, because otherwise I don't see them being all that great. But still, this is for me a good team, and they will be competitive. The only reason I don't see them, or the main reason I don't see them making the playoffs, is because I see some small separation between his team and the other strong teams in this division, which could hurt him in the standings compared to the other bubble teams from the other divisions. And in 5th place in the division, the rebuild continues for the Solar Bears, and they are making some progress, but I'm not really sure about when to expect some better results, because you see the core players, it's not, they have a great piece in Marner, but the defense is, I don't know, not all that promising. Sergachev could emerge to become a real solid contributor, but still, what more to be asked? And when we look at the rebuilder teams, we need to look into the future, and they have Demko as a really good prospect to take over in goal. And in terms of rookies, they have Brandstrom, Zadina, Batterson, and Thomas. So they have some young core pieces coming up, but still a long ways to go in my opinion, especially in the division as strong as the Adams. Next, we look at the Norris, and Brad has hyped up the Norris quite a bit, but I will not differ from him. As a matter of fact, I think the Norris could be, or at least the top 3 teams in the Norris could be even stronger than the glory days of the Norris, when they had 4 or even 5 teams in contention for the playoffs. And my prediction for the top spot in the division goes to Linköping. And Brad took a year off, but he added some big pieces at the auction, and he has a goaltender prospect coming up who will likely get a decent shot at starting in Columbus right away. And with Elias Pettersson and Matt Tkachuk, these are some great young pieces. Especially Matt Tkachuk could soon be one of the best overall contributors in our format, if he's not already. He just needs to sign. But for me, Brad is definitely a contender. His ratings are pretty excellent throughout, close to 5 stars in both the offensive and the goaltending categories, and also very good in the grit categories, which he boosted with the acquisition of Bufflin. So this is quite a scary team overall. He's, in my projections, he was the top team actually in terms of penalty minutes. And also he has a couple of rookies to look forward to. The most noticeable, which we'll get a look as early as in 2 weeks, is Vitaly Kravtsov. And also in net with Igor Shesterkin, he might have a former Soviet tandem for him going in the next 2 or 3 years. So good on him. In second place, and a very close second, I see the Ice Dice. The Ice Dice are probably the most explosive offensive team in the league. They are deep and deadly in terms of scoring. It's just crazy when you look at the depth charts and the amount of goals and points. They are actually projected, in my projections, the team, the Roto projections, they are first in both goals and assists. So it is quite a impressive feat. Naturally, this gets them first in the 2 goals plus assist category. And also not too bad, they have arguably the best 1-2 in goal. If Price and Jones are both healthy, and Jones, I can't see a way he wouldn't rebound from his season last season. If he goes back to being average, which he has proven he can, this is a great goaltending crew. And also For the teams that plan on using mostly 2 goaltenders, I have given a very slight nod to their goaltending ranking, just because when you run 2 goaltenders, you just optimize your roster to be able to get a bit more squeezed out of your skaters. So a great team for Mark, and his defense is not very impressive, but with Adam Fox he could soon have another impressive piece on the back end, and again another impressive scoring piece. So he's really strongly developed his team to dominate the scoring categories. In third place, and also again not far third from the other two, I see the San Diego Gulls. The Gulls are a very strong team, and they are the third and I think final team that gets a 5-star goaltending rating. They have Vasilevsky, who is arguably the top dog in the NHL in terms of goaltenders right now. And I don't see Thomas Greiss being awful in the Islanders system, so he might not get as many starts as last season, but still I see this tandem producing excellent ratios and a hefty amount of wins, mainly from Vasilevsky. As far as offense, the Gulls are not that spectacular, but on the other side they are deep, so they don't rely on a couple of huge contributors, so they could potentially handle injury a lot better. So I definitely see the Gulls as a walk to make the playoffs, and the only reason I don't have them labeled as a contender are the other two teams in the division, which could both push them a little bit down the standings and into more unfavorable matchups in the playoffs. And here I have the playoff line. So basically I have went with the statistical cutoff line at 60% of the teams make the playoffs and 40% don't, which I don't think has ever happened, so I'm bound to be wrong in this. And below the line I have the two still rebuilding teams, the Grizzly Islands, who I think are progressing nicely. And just look at the top deep pair. You begin salivating when you look and then imagine how great can they be for the next 7 or 8 years while James has them both under control. They have a great foundation in Carter Hart in net, and they only need to add a couple of pieces to grow up front, and they have no shortage of pieces coming up, although their best prospects for me are again coming on the back end in Noah Dobson and Keandre Miller. So they have some work to boost their forwards, but they look to be set on D for basically 4 years. And in last place in the division I have the Sparta Warriors. They splashed the cash to acquire two of the biggest names in this year's goaltending market, and this could actually be one of their best moves, because if Rinne has a 1 or 2 more good years and Varlamov fits well in the system, the Islander system, and gets like 50-55 starts, they are going to have a great goaltending team that actually might exceed the 3 stars I have given them here, and could actually carry them to respectability in many matchups. Otherwise, behind Goodrow, Svechnikov and Parayko, it's a big gap until the next group of guys, and the center depth is just atrocious. Just having Pajot and Tourist listed here, I was scrapping to get something onto the center depth chart. But this is a team that has a couple of prospects like Kirby Duck, Broberg, and Bobby Brink that really should boost their offense in the next 2 to 3 years, and they start climbing the ladder. And we get to the Smites division. The Smite division will be not very different to what the status was in the division over the last 2 seasons. It's a pretty wild division in terms of parity. This is the division, and will, I think, be again the division in which the difference between the top and the last place team is the smallest. So the smallest in terms of both places and points. But anyway, we start with what I predict will win the division, and these are the Steelers. So my team was actually, I was surprised at how dominant the stats show for the defensive categories. The Steelers are, according to the projections, top 3 in all 4 defensive categories, while leading the hits and the block shots, and the hits leading by a margin ahead of the second team. The offense is not impressive, but it's pretty balanced, I would say. No huge scoring stars here. And the goaltending is the gamble here, because I'm going in the season with 2 goaltenders only, and actually no plan B. So I am one Matt Murray injury away from being a disaster in the crease, but hopefully we don't come to that, or at least not to a huge injury. But overall, I think the Steelers are quite strong and should be able to stay on top of the division for 3rd or 4th year in a row. I don't know. Have to check. In second place, I see the Turtles. They have also similarly to the Steelers. They are mostly built from the back end on, so their best categories are the defensive and the goaltendings. They have the crew of Holtby and Markstrom, and they added Cam Talbot in the auction, and if Talbot has a kind of a rebound season for the Flames, they could boost one of the best goalie crews, and especially in terms of goalie points. Maybe not the best one for goalie ratios, but they will get a lot of wins with 3 goalies that play regularly. And they also, like the Steelers, they don't have a lot of superstars, but they have guys who aren't listed in their top 6, like Michael Furlant and Tyler Bertuzzi, who are solid contributors both on the offensive and on the defensive end in terms of scoring categories. And in terms of rookies to look forward to, they have Eli Tovanen, who didn't break out last season, but could get another shot this season maybe. In 3rd place, and I have the Turtles as a bubble team, and you will see the team status structure of this division is quite different than the others. We have no rebuilding teams here, and basically I almost put the Steelers at bubble 2 because I could see my team not making the playoffs. It would not be a shocker. And all the other teams are bubble, so the placements here could be all over. But I still see the Flames making the playoffs. Basically, they have a great top guys. The top 4 here of McKinnon, Aho, Jamie Benn, and Brady Tkachuk should be great. They have a good top pair on D. And I think, contrary to what Brad predicted, I still see Fleury and Dubnyk as one of the best tandems for fantasy in our format. And I still think they will be solid enough to actually carry the Flames to some decent results, paired with what I actually predict to be a monster season for McKinnon. I think they have the pieces here and there to make them to take them to the playoffs in a division with a lot of parity and unpredictability as the Smite. And but what I have here as a note is that on the defensive side they are quite good in terms of penalty minutes, but are dead last in block shots in the predictions. So they don't like throwing the body in front of shots. And here I have the playoff line, and below the playoff line I have the Mighty Camels just below. They are the ultimate average team. No other team has average rating in all three categories. They have average ratings not because they have only average players, but because they don't have enough good ones. In terms of forwards, they have a magnificent top line, which could actually be the best in terms of fantasy contribution. And Darnell Nurse, who is developing to become a real force in our scoring format, something like Bufflin was for years. So we could see something similar in Nurse. And but below that, other than Scheifele and Johansson, which are great as center depth, but on D, when you pick up Seabrook at the auction and he slots as one of your three best defensemen in today, not 7 years ago, it's not a great testament to your team. And in goal, Hellebuck could turn out to be great, but if Winnipeg aren't great anymore, so his numbers will also fail. And Quick and Campbell as the tandem of the Kings aren't expected to be great, so it could hurt. So that's why I see this as an average tandem, because on paper I think this tandem looks good, Hellebuck and Quick, but in real life and in real stats I don't think it's that great. So I see the Mighty Camels not making the playoffs. And in last place in the Smite, but not far behind, are the Royals, and they have amazing goaltending, and could potentially have the best goaltending crew if Gibson and Ranta stay healthy. I especially think this combination is very strong for goalie ratio categories, because all three of them have put great ratios throughout their careers. Especially Elliott, when he's now the backup to Hart, should have a lot better stats than when he has been a starter. And of course they have McDavid. They have now also Capo Caco. So they have some great punch, but then the depth behind them is really non-existent. On center behind McDavid, they have Bukestad and Lars Eller and Adrian Kempe. And I don't see any of them as top 6 in terms of contribution in our fantasy group. On left wing, it's also disaster. If you want to find old guys who are on a UDL team but they have no NHL team, you have come to the right place. The Royals have 2 of them, so they're rolling the dice on some veterans. And they got Roman Josi at the auction, which I think was a great move, and I think he wasn't overpaid. But they still need more depth on D. and I don't know what to say. If the Royals and the Oilers both miss the playoffs again this season, I'm calling it the McDavid curse. I don't know if McDavid curses or it's McDavid is cursed, but anyhow, I don't find it normal that teams with McDavid should be out of the playoffs. So with that, we conclude the division overviews, and just a few things to round up. How I predict the actual regular season standings to look. I have the top teams only, and I see them in that order. And Linköping ahead of the Ice Dice, so the two Norris teams. Then I see Hearst, then Sheffield, and then San Diego. And mainly fifth for San Diego because they're in the same division with the top two teams, and they will be playing against each other. They will cannibalize some of the points that they would otherwise get. But so is life in a tough division. And what do I predict as far as playoffs go? So the final four for me will look like this, and the matchups will unfold like this. We have two battles: the battle of the Norris and the battle of the Patrick. And I see two upsets when the division champions of both divisions lose. This is would be a revenge for Las Vegas to finishing second in the regular season, and a final before the final for the two Norris teams to meet. But then I go for the ultimate surprise in the final, in the Wanderers defeating the Las Vegas Ice Dice and becoming a dark horse champion in the UDL in 2020. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and looking forward to getting things rolling in about 2 weeks time. So bye bye.